What's up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. Welcome me to the live stream. Hey, it's a good thing y'all have plenty here to say. Bardwell, you coming? I was lost. I was lost. I don't usually have to set an alarm for the 8 o'clock stream. I just, 7 o'clock. I'm just like, hey, I guess it's time to go downstairs and, yeah. I was working on this. This is a gift from a friend of mine. A really thoughtful gift. It's from, and this is going to sound like I'm doing a plug, and I should be doing a plug because they actually have an affiliate program, but I'm not a part of it. This is from the DIY Watch Club, where they basically send you, they say build your own watch, but they send you the pre-assembled movement. So, like, 8:11 p.m. 8:11 p.m. There we go. They send you a pre-assembled movement because, like, assembling a movement is not for most people. Why did you? Oh no. And you? Why is it not? But shit. The second hand stopped moving. What has happened? And then you assemble the watch and you can fuck it up. Why is it? Oh, man. Well, that sucks. Come on. Go. Oh, now it's moving. Okay, cool. Oh, and then it stopped. Okay, well, something isn't right. Yeah, because I'll have to figure that out after the stream. That's a real shame. Anyway. No, it's wound. It's definitely wound. Let me just wind the crap out of it. Hold on. Wind. And no, it goes like 5 seconds and then it stops. What has happened? Oh, fuck me. The fucking minute hand is interfering with the second hand. I leveled the hands correctly. Well, I'll have to open it back up again and take it out. Anyway, that's the fun of the DIY Watch Club. You can fuck up your own watch. It was a great present for a nerd like me. If he had bought me a watch, I would have been, oh, thanks, dude, that's nice. But he bought me a watch that I could fuck up, and that's, yeah. Anyway, I was so close to finishing it and was lost and lost track of time. So that's annoying. That's annoying. Welcome to the stream, everybody. We got a giant super chat that just came in from Budman17R, so I feel like we're going to break the normal flow of the stream, and we're just going to answer it ASAP. Quick question. Thank you for $200. Happy holidays, Budman. If you have a 100C battery, is it true that technically an 800 milliamp hour battery will give more power than a 650 milliamp hour battery? Thank you for all you do, and happy holidays. Okay, so you have to start with the stipulation that C rating is BS. Okay? C rating is BS. They just kind of make it up. It's not complete fabrication. Like, generally, a 100C battery will have better current producing performance than like a 45C battery. But like, there's fine gradations like 80C, 90C, 95C, 100C, and it's generally, there's not really a reliable way to like test C rating. The manufacturer sells the cells, and the cells from the manufacturer are labeled with a certain C rating. The manufacturer has some way of doing that. And we've seen cases where if you open up a 100C battery and actually look at the individual cells, stamped on the cell is 90C. And the manufacturer just, the pack manufacturer who purchased the cells and assembled them into a pack just decided to call it a 100C because they thought it would sell better. So setting all that aside, the C rating of a cell is related to the physical construction of the cell. And there are things you can do to make a cell be able to produce more current, and there are things you can do to make a cell be able to have more capacity. And generally speaking, those things are in opposition to each other, okay? And I don't know enough about cell manufacturing to talk about the specifics. But I talked to Matthew Barnard from Upgrade Energy, who knows as much about batteries and cells as really anyone I've ever personally met. Probably he's at the top of that list. And he said, essentially, you can make a cell be high energy density, high capacity, or you can make a cell have a high C rating. The things that you do to make one are in opposition to the other. And so C rating is a real thing, and it relates to the physical construction of the cell. So it is true that if you have, 100 C, it is true that a larger cell will give more current, right? That's just always true. When I read your question, I thought you were saying, is it true that like a 100C 650 milliamp will give more current than like an 80C 800 milliamp? And in that case, yes, technically, except that the C rating might be BS, and it's kind of like, well, you'd have to test the individual packs to find out, because there are some 650 packs that will beat some 800 packs, But if you stipulate that they both have the same realistic C rating, then yes, absolutely. A larger cell will give more current. And it has to do with the ability of the electrons to move through the cell, the ability of the cell to move electrons to the terminal, and yada, yada, yada. Things that I'm not really qualified to talk about. But the reality is, yes, larger cells can provide more current. And that's why when you buy a gigantic 20,000 milliamp hour battery for your big Cinelifter, maybe it's only 10C. Okay? But that's 200 amps because the cells are so gosh darn huge. Okay? So, yes, absolutely. A larger milliamp hour battery will be able to provide more current, assuming it's an equal C rating. And if you really want to know how much current or power the battery can provide, you have to take into account both the C rating and the milliamp hours. So hopefully that answer satisfies you and you feel like you got your money's worth. Budman, thank you for the very, very generous donation. People in the chat saying he didn't give two C ratings to compare, just the milliamp hour. I got there. I figured it out. I figured it out eventually. Yeah, because it has something to do with the fact that larger milliamp hour cells have lower internal resistance, therefore they can provide more current. But then why do they have lower internal resistance? We've just sort of taken one step back and still not really answered the question.
Also, just two other quick things to point out is one, if you're actually asking how much power, then if you're not pulling the C rating limit of the battery in the first place, then maybe you'll just see a tiny bit less sag, but otherwise you may not see more power, right? Generally speaking. And the other thing is, if you actually just mean power, then the milliamp rating is showing you the actual wattage, when you look at what's in there versus, if they're both the same voltage and the same different milliamp hours, then the milliamp hour times the voltage is giving you the theoretical
the watt
power.
Hours. Well, the watt hours. Right. But the actual instantaneous power that the battery can provide is amps times volts. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that's what we do here. We answer questions. I'm so annoyed that the watch isn't working. I really want to just pull it open right now and fix that minute hand. I'm not going to. But the other thing that I installed this bezel ring here. And this is like a sticker. It's not a sticker, but it sticks on the top of the actual bezel. And I installed it crooked so that when the bezel is clicked into position, do you see it's not lined up correctly? Right? There, it's clicked, it's off, it's clicked, it's off. And I don't know if you could pull that thing off or if I'm just going to, how often do I use the bezel anyway? What is that even for? I don't know. It's a 24-click bezel. 60 clicks, one click is a minute. Makes sense. What's a 24-click bezel for? Counting hours? I don't know. Anyway, I'm probably just going to leave it as it is. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you to the friend who bought that for me. Merry Christmas. I didn't get you anything. Shit, I should get him a present. Damn. Okay. Let's answer more questions. That's what we do here. If you guys have left a super chat, I will get to it very shortly. Going to take some, no. We don't smack it on its back. No. We're going to open it up and we're going to level the minute hand. That's the right way to do it. Anyway. For flying mid-long range with ELRS, how well does dynamic power work? Or is the set power level better? Dynamic power works okay. I haven't done a lot of mid-long range flying. I've done shorter range flying, but behind obstacles. And I've never fail-safed because of dynamic power, for what it's worth. Theoretically, if you have dynamic power turned on and you fly behind a really heavy concrete wall or something, and the signal goes from 100% LQ, boop, to nothing. If it does that fast enough, then the dynamic power might not change in time and you might fail safe before it catches up. Or maybe have like a little micro fail safe. But my real concern just is that I don't like seeing the LQ dip. So when you have dynamic power on, you'll be flying and the link quality will go 100, 90, 85, 75, 100 as the dynamic power adjusts. And I don't like it. That kind of freaks me out a little bit. Like, how do I know if the dynamic power is going to adjust or if I'm about to fail safe? So I usually run static power just because that kind of annoys me. But if you wanted to run dynamic power to save a little bit of battery, that's not a bad idea. It's not like it's going to mess you up in some way. Jeez, BMF Spade. Where can you get motor plugs for Whoop AIOs? I mean, what you normally need to do in a situation like that is identify those plugs. They didn't invent those plugs. They didn't make them up just for the Whoop AIO. That's a product that you can buy off the open market. You just have to know what the plug is, okay? So, like, if I just do... Mobula 6 motor plug, okay? Tiny Whoop motor connector, R/FPV. After my first plug, blah, 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 blah. JST 1.25 3P. There you go. So, now, I think that's what most flight controllers use, except for Newbie Drone, who uses an oddball plug. But that is, so then what I would do is, I would go to DigiKey, or maybe Amazon. JST 125 3P. JST 1.25 3P. Search. No dice. 1.25. Headers, receptacle, female sockets, headers, male pins, blah, blah, blah. This is usually a pain in the ass. So what I do is I just go to Amazon. Boom, JST 1.25, bingo. This is probably what I would buy. I would verify that it was matching, that it looked right, and do a little more research than my half-assed research here on the live stream, but I would just try to identify the connector just like you saw me do, and then buy it. Buy some, and there you're good to go. Hopefully that is what you're looking for. Newbie Drone uses SH 1.0. I think because they're smaller. Zip369 says there are multiple JST versions that are all 125 pitch. Okay. Well, so do more research than I did, but that's the general process. Search around until you find someone who references the plug. Double check that the plug looks correct. And then I think he wants the male version to plug into the PCB, not he wants the version that goes on the motor, I believe. I would say direct soldering your motors is better. It's just better. I would direct solder the motors personally, but that's your call. You have less resistance. Poulet asks, I got a Walksnail GM2 and GM3 gimbal. I want to use the GM3 on an analog quad as a battle-mounted camera for spectators on Goggles L. Should I expect any issues? I don't know why you would expect... What issues would you expect? I'm a little confused. It's a very open-ended question. GM2 I would mount as a front camera to be able to look down at times, just like your Medlin gimbal. Good idea. I would say if you want to do something like the Medlin gimbal, you should do the Medlin gimbal. That GM2 is okay, but gosh, Josh Medlin has so refined his process. Like, the durability of the Medlin gimbal is off the charts. If you want to do it the other way, that's fine. That's fine. One of the problems you're going to run into is if you have two video transmitters on the same bird, they're going to interfere with each other. So you may not want them super close to each other. Give me 1 second. Yeah. You may need to frequency space them out and so forth. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Is there anything special I should do to conformal coat my HDZero VTX or camera? Do not conformal coat a camera. Do not conformal coat a camera. If the conformal coating gets on the sensor, that's ruined. Okay? I'm sure there are people out there who have conformal coated the board and somehow not gotten any of the vapors or anything on the sensor. I don't think it's worth the risk. Don't do it. As far as the VTX goes, the standard rules about not conformal coating the pins, not conformal coating the buttons because it'll stop the buttons and pins from working, that all applies. But I don't know if there's anything else on the HDZero VTX that would not like being conformal coated, like there's no barometer or anything. So yeah, that's I think what I would say about that. I use DJI Goggles 3 and Remote 3, RC3. What's my best budget DJI O3 PNP? Man, with the DJI O3, there are not many budget options because the O3 itself is almost half the cost of the whole aircraft. So, iFlight Eco, Nazgul XL5 Eco. That's a good budget quadcopter. The analog version comes in at... Hang on. It's coming. I hope it's coming. Comes in, there we go. It took a minute. The analog version comes in at $219. That's incredible budget these days. Heck, that would be a good price. Freaking 5 years ago, that would be a good price. Amazing, fantastic, budget, wonderful. Can we get it with the O3? Does it even come with the O3? Maybe the Eco. Does it only come in analog? Yeah, it does. O3 version? $400. That's still pretty good. So I picked this one because I knew the Nazgul Eco was an economical choice. That's why they call it the Eco, I assume. $400 for a bind and fly is not a small amount of money by anybody's calculation. But for a bind and fly with the O3 in it, a lot of the other ones are going to be $450 or $500 in that price range. So that would be a good 5-inch that I would point you toward. The other one is the... And I'm actually currently in the process of uploading. Is it still uploading? Yeah, it is. I'm currently in the process of uploading my review of the GEP-RC Vapor. But the GEP-RC Vapor is somewhat reasonably priced. It's got the O3, and it comes in at $389 with an ExpressLRS receiver, $406. So that's also a good choice to look at, GEP-RC Vapor. I actually was super impressed with how well the Vapor 5-inch flew. What's the weight of the Nazgul Eco? I'm curious. I don't remember like being blown away by the way that the Eco flew. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't spectacular. 450 grams. What about the Vapor? I wondered if it was lighter. Hello? Weight. What that doesn't say. Well, I mean, I gosh dang have it. I think it's pretty close. I don't know. I was super impressed with the way the Vapor flew. I liked it a lot. The 5-inch felt really nimble, and I'm not really sure why, but I really liked it. So check those out. Those are going to be some of your best bets for a 5-inch in the price range. It's there on the page. Was it there on the page? Was it, though? Maybe I'm just live streaming, so maybe I just wasn't looking carefully. Let's do a search for weight. There we go. Ah, there you go. I was right. 420 grams versus 450 grams. Yeah, 675 grams with a battery. That's not that different. They're pretty close all up with the battery. I guess we don't know what battery. Yeah, but 30 grams different is, I don't know. Maybe that's why it flew so good. I thought it flew really, really well. So, okay, let's take some more super chats now that we've gone for a few minutes. Luke Stearman asks, I'm interested in the Cadx Infra. You mentioned a walk-snail version in a review, but I can only find analog. Is it possible it was discontinued? Well, I don't know if I would say discontinued so much as walk-snail did the thing that they do where they say that they're going to do something and then it takes them forever and they maybe don't do it. So that's what I would say. But yeah, no, I don't think it's been released. Michael J says, have the Goggles 3 O3 Air units been resolved? I believe so, Michael. DJI released a firmware update that was supposed to fix that issue. Now, did it fix the issue 100%? Or does it still exist in rare cases? I certainly haven't heard the uproar that I would hear if the problem was still widespread. So I think that it's been resolved in the latest firmware. It's certainly no longer a recommend that you don't do it situation. If there are issues, they're rare and far between. Sci-Fly, thank you for £2. Goggle and O3 unit not connect on start even if bound. Well then, if they're bound, how do you know they're bound? Like if you press the bind button and it went dunk, 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 then they're bound, right? And when you turn on the goggles in the air unit, you get a solid green LED, you know? Does the goggles show RSSI? Does it show signal strength and so on? Yeah. My guess is that they are bound and you're not getting image from the camera, which can be the result of the camera cable being messed up or the camera connector not being seated correctly. If that's the case, then the simplest thing to do is to open the O3. There's a little shield that you take out 2 screws and you pull it off and you reseat the MIPI cable. And if that fixes it, great. If that doesn't fix it, you can open up the camera, which is a little bit more involved, and reseat that cable. And then if that doesn't fix it, you're in new camera territory. But again, that assumes that they're bound and you're just not getting picture. But you say they don't connect even if bound. So I'm not 100% sure how to parse that. Maybe you'll say some more in the chat and Blunty will notice and flag it. Hold on. Okay. That's it for Super Chats. Great. There weren't very many Super Chats. We'll go back to the regular chats. I have the Fat Shark Echo, and I'm trying to connect them to my PS4, but all I see is squiggly lines. Do you know why? It's not the wires. How'd you connect your Fat Shark Echo to your PS4?
HDMI, right? It has to be.
A Fat Shark Echo, does it have HDMI input?
Oh, I wonder if this is through an AV cable then?
It's, yeah, through an AV cable. He screwed up he says it's not the wires, as if I love it, Blunty, just between you and me. Chat, don't listen to this part. Blunty, don't you love it when people say, my receiver is bound, but I'm not getting any inputs on the Betaflight receiver tab. It's not the wiring. And I'm like, well, I know you don't think it's the wiring, but your shit's not working. So maybe it's the wiring. If you knew how to do the wiring right, then then everything would be working.
It's not the USB cable, and then you spend 15 minutes, and they're like, "Oh, it was the USB cable. I didn't understand." It's
So when we're like, "Hey, dumbass," we don't say the dumbass part; it's implied. When we're like, "Hey, dumbass, did you take my goggles are bound, but I don't see any image." Did you take the lens cap off the camera? And I say this as someone who regularly leaves the lens cap on a camera, and then I'm like, the is up with this camera? And then I realize, oh, I left the lens cap on. So I'm a dumbass too sometimes. When we say that, it's because of all the times that people get that stuff wrong and overlook it. So what's the deal here? Fat Shark Echo. No, of course we're not going to be able to see the ports to see if they have an AV input, because Fat Shark's stupid effing... Do I have these? No, that's the Goggles L. Stupid effing marketing materials don't include pictures of the goggles from every angle. And it doesn't say whether they have an AV input. Stupid. Do they have an AV input? Gosh, I don't know. They do have an AV input functionality. It says AV. There we go, AV input. So I'm guessing that what you're doing is you've got like an HDMI to AV converter, and then you're running the AV input to the goggles. My guess is that your wiring is wrong. Fat Shark goggles in the past have had a different pinout for the 3.5 millimeter AV jack, which meant that if you plugged in video, audio, yellow, red, white, or whatever, then if you have a standard AV cable with a 3.5 millimeter plug, then it wouldn't work. And there was a different pinout for the wire that would work with the Fat Shark goggles. Did your Fat Shark goggles come with an AV cable? If so, use that cable only. Otherwise, it's a bit of a crapshoot to find a cable that has the right pinout. And in the past, when I was trying to do this, I literally just bought cable after cable off of Amazon until I stumbled upon one that worked correctly. And like sometimes in the Amazon product listing, it would say, "This is the cable that you need for such and such a camera, not the other ones." And I'd be like, oh, maybe that's it. The truth is that there isn't like a universal standard for the pinout of an audio cable or video audio cable, right? There isn't a standard. There isn't a standard for the pinout. So, like here they're showing you this is the pinout and it's compatible with such and such Sony camcorder, Panasonic camcorder, etc. And we've got left on the tip, video on the first ring, ground on the second ring, right on the third ring. Okay. Well, your Fat Shark goggle doesn't match this pinout, and that's why your video is scrolling. You need a cable with a different pinout. And what's the right pinout? I don't know. Is it in the manual? Yeah, Blunty, go ahead.
Real quick, as Unreality points out, you can swap the red, white, and yellow as long as ground is in the right place. You can maybe get lucky. But
the problem is, and I can't say for sure what's going on with the Echo, but I can talk about the old HDO goggles and all the other Fat Shark goggles and their pinout, and I'll bet it's the same issue. The ground was in the wrong place. So you could not just it wasn't like yellow was left audio, white was video, and red was right audio, or like you just swapped the cables and it works. Ground was in the wrong place, so nothing freaking worked until you had a cable with the right pinout. That's my guess. So what I would do, here's the thing though. There's basically two pinouts that every cable uses. So it's not as bad as it sounds. So this is LVGR, okay? LVGR. Okay, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? This one, right? And we're just going to start looking. LRGV. Aha! Is that it? Now ground is in the same place. I don't know, but that's different. That's LRVG. The other one was it the same? Have I misremembered? I don't know. Here is LVGR. No, see, I'm not crazy. So we've got one cable that's LVGR and one is that LRVG. Maybe that's it. Also, I guess it's worth a try because it costs you nothing. As Blunty said, try plugging the cables in differently. Take your video cable and plug it into yellow, plug it into red, plug it into white. See if you get good video in one of those. Like, just trial and error it. LVGR, okay. LVGR, okay, right? So just proceed with this whole process. LVGR, okay, and try to buy all the combinations and see which frickin' one works for you. I am noticing, Blunty, that the ground cable is in the same place on all of those. So I'm pretty sure that swapping the connectors didn't work with the way Fat Shark had it. Hang on a second. Fat Shark AV cable. Can I find the Fat Shark pinout? God, wouldn't that be amazing? Here's the actual Fat Shark AV cable. You can't buy this anywhere. Can you? Fat Shark AV cable. RC Vision AV. That's not it. Fat Shark. Oh. That is not an AV cable. Shut up. Clearview. Here we go. LRVG. Yes, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. They do put the ground in the wrong place. So Fat Shark's pinout is LRVG. I'm not crazy. None of those ones will work. You need an LRVG cable. Thank you, Clearview, from years ago. So you have to find a stupid... Here, look, I made a video about this 3 years ago. Ha! Ha!
Joseph S. says...
Did I tell you which cable to buy? Ha-ha! Hello?
I don't know how I'm gonna...
Did I get there? God, look at my color grade.
Bingo!
So bad.
Shitload of them!
Haha, here we go.
Until I found one that worked. Was I lying? Was I lying to you? I was not lying.
I told you.
December
from the
5th,
past.
2016. June 9th, 2017. June 9th, 2017. June 9th, 2017. June 3rd, 2018. Boom! This is the one that I found that worked.
Whoopang RCA jack adapter. Okay. Can I find that exact same one again? No, the Whoopang is gone. And this one doesn't have the pinout. All right, that's as much as I'm willing to say at this point. I feel like that's as much as I can realistically do for you. You need the pinout that I said earlier, or you need to find someone to sell you a Fat Shark specific RCA cable that has the correct pinout, or you need to, I don't know, make your own, I guess. You could make your own. Okay. It's fun. I love questions like that, where the answer is like some obscure thing from years ago. Okay. Is it better to buy the Boxer or the Boxer Crush if you're someone that doesn't care if there's a small change in how the gimbals feel? Well, by definition, if you don't care about the gimbals, buy the Boxer, right? Save yourself the money. The AG01 gimbals are nice. I liken them to having leather upholstery in a car. It doesn't make you drive better, but it does. It makes you, you just enjoy it, and that's what I think the gimbals are like. But if you're stipulating you don't care about how the gimbals feel, then no, just buy the regular Boxer. Can you buy 18650s in a Walmart? I don't think so. I would just try to go to Batteries Plus. They might be able to sell you some. That's my question. I guess if there's one near you.
The local vape shop. Maybe
yeah, duh. I don't vape, so I don't think of these things. Your local vape shop, of course. They'll have 18650s for vapes. Yeah, go to a vape shop. They're freaking everywhere too. Vape shops are. It's like cannabis isn't even legal in Tennessee. I'm not really sure how this works. I guess it's like the I don't know, Delta 8 freaking
Hemp Act, the hemp bill.
Yeah. I knew you would know.
Yeah, as long as it's extracted from hemp and then is under 0.02% or whatever, then it's okay.
Yeah. Except Tennessee is trying to outlaw that and break that. So F you.
Yeah, there's specific cities that are and counties that are like, we don't want it. And I guess states.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm fiddling with the weight in this watch. I don't know. Anyway. Vape shops are not guaranteed anymore, says Unreality. I had to go to like 6. Yeah, that's what I've heard, is that a lot of the tobacco smokers or nicotine smokers are going to disposable vapes. I used to see hipsters with like handheld vapes, big 18650 rigs or whatever. Now everybody's got just the disposable ones. I think there was some legal change recently, or not so recently, and I don't know if the same thing is happening in cannabis. So anyway, Levster FPV says, I got a whoop on an X12 by Happy model with blah blah blah, and I get hot motors. Do you have any suggestions? They're getting not boiling hot but extra warm. If they're just warm, you're just flying it, dude. No big deal, right?
Yeah, that's 29,000 kV motors. I'm assuming what that means. So,
yeah. Oh, RCI P29K. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
RCM power. I would expect those to get hot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But they shouldn't. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you're okay. Does it fly good? Are the motors like dangerously hot? Like, if they're new motors, then there's unless you have just like wild PIDs, I think everything's okay. Like you want your motors to come down a little warm. That shows you they're working, right? You don't want them to get super hot, but if they're a little warm, I wouldn't worry about it. I have absolutely no recommendation for 100 to 150K motors in ESC for a fixed wing plane. I couldn't even begin to make that recommendation, Muzzy and Figure. That's so far outside my area of expertise. Sorry. Fly Dream Ecuador says, experimenting around with GPS, want to have a variometer beeps on radio with variation of altitude to cruise smoother and as altitude guide support. How would I go about this on OpenTX, FreedomTX? So I know that EdgeTX and OpenTX have a variometer function built into the radio. It's presumably based on altitude telemetry. So the first thing you need is a barometer and or a GPS. GPS altitude is not super accurate. So the thing is, of most people who use a variometer, they probably are using a dedicated variometer, like guys who are doing glider stuff, because the variometer from the GPS is not going to be very precise. And so for like a glider who really needs to know their climb rate and their descent rate and so forth very precisely and very with low latency so they can respond correctly, it's just not enough. If you have a barometer, the telemetry is still going to have some delay, but it's maybe better than nothing. Unfortunately, I don't know how to configure it. I've never messed with a variometer. I just know that it's there, and I kind of vaguely know what it is, and there's options for, the sound and so forth. But as far as making it work, I don't know. I would guess that there's a special function. Like, I'm going to turn my Boxer on, and I'm going to press Model and go look, and just in the model setup, there's the variometer settings. Are there? Or have I got that turned off too? No, it's not there. Is it in the radio settings? Radio setup. Have I got it just disabled? Haptic. Vario. Yeah, in the radio setup, there's Vario settings. Pitch 0, pitch max, repeat 0, and volume. How do you enable the variometer? I'm going to guess it's in special functions. So I'm going to hit model and go to special functions. I'm going to add a special function and I'm going to look for variometer. Vario. Okay. So there's a special function named Vario. I'm going to guess that number one, if you have altitude in your telemetry sensors, and then number two, you go to special functions. I don't know why I'm showing you this. You can't see it. You can't read it. And you enable the Vario special function. You're going to want to put that on a switch so that you could turn the variometer on and off. Then by flipping that switch, the variometer will become active and it'll do its thing. And hopefully that's enough information to get you started. How to increase range with analog. Patch antennas, high gain antennas, higher power VTX. That's the answer. Good quality high gain antennas and or a higher power VTX. There you go. Do you have the Lumineer double antennas? Those are omnis. Well, switch to directional antennas. That'll give you some gain. And then you have a 1.6 watt VTX. Switch to a 2.5 watt VTX. They'll get you more range. That's the gist of it. Any thoughts on the RP4T DM receiver? So that's Radiomaster. For what it's worth, I covered this receiver in my video about the Radiomaster Nomad module because they came out together. This is, no, sorry, this is a diversity receiver. This is not the four-way. So, where does that leave us? It's just a 2.4 gigahertz diversity receiver. Oh, well, that's okay. What's the big deal? Oh, it's micro. It's 1 gram. So they've made it smaller. It's a true diversity receiver. So it has dual receive chains, and it can do Gemini. And it weighs 1 gram. That's slick. For $20. Nice. Lightweight, Gemini. What are you giving up? Built-in temperature-controlled oscillator? You're giving up nothing. Oh, there we go. 10 milliwatt telemetry. Okay, that's it. So it has much weaker telemetry, which if you're doing racing and stuff, you don't care. But the larger ones will have they'll have like 100 milliwatts telemetry, so you'll get telemetry for a longer distance. That seems to be one thing you're giving up. Other than that, yeah, here we go. I was right. 2x 100 milliwatts, 2x 10 milliwatts. So it's just weaker telemetry output. Seems really good for like racing, any build where you have lightweight. Of course, you're saving 2 grams. It's really, you're not even saving that much size, to be honest. So I don't know. If you want to save 2 grams, then go for it. What's the difference in flight time between 4S and 6S for a sub 250 gram? I have to tell you, below, like in my mind, 3 inches to 3.5 inches is the minimum threshold where 6S starts to maybe kind of make sense. Anything below 3 inches, 2.5 inches, 2 inches, etc., for 6S is a waste of time. And the part of the reason is that the cells get so small. If you think about it, if you have a 6S battery and it's a given weight, it's a given size and weight. If you go to a 4S battery, you have 2/3 the number of cells, so the cells themselves are larger. And the smaller a cell gets, there's a threshold where it gets really hard to make a good quality cell. The C rate, the manufacturing is very fiddly. That's why little 350 milliamp hour 1S cells are so fiddly to get right. Okay? So part of the reason is that for the smaller builds, the 2.5, the 2 inch and so on builds, the batteries are so small that the cells need to be as big as they can be, and going to 4S makes the cells bigger than 6S. But part of the reason is also that the higher voltage gives you a benefit when you need more current with less heat buildup. That's a deep sentence that we won't dive off into those waters. But if you're not pulling enough current out of the battery, then there's not really a benefit to going to a higher voltage. And in the 2.5 inch and below domain, you're generally not doing that. So I don't think with a Grinderino, which I think is 2 inches, maybe 2.5, I can't remember, even many 3 inches, unless you're going for like a bonkers racing build, don't really make sense on 6S. So I would go 4S. But if you see somebody out there who did a 6S build and you like the way it looks, freaking go for it. I don't think so, though. I wouldn't recommend it. Are AIOs replacing stacks? I don't think so. Not on builds from, say, 4 inches and up. On smaller builds, like 3 inches and down, AIOs start to make sense because they're smaller, they're more compact, and in some cases they're lighter, but not always. But just they take up less space and they're easier to mount in a frame. So, yeah. I don't know if they're taking over in the larger builds, but yeah, and on smaller builds, AIOs are pretty much the standard. The weakness of AIOs, in my opinion, is that the ESC, because you just crammed the ESC on a board with so many other things, you generally are using smaller FETs, and the ESC is just not as durable. It's not able to handle the current and the voltage spikes, as well. So they tend to fry when you put them on larger builds, whereas on smaller builds, there's less current, and they tend to last longer. Marty Sepp says an FPV store near me only has the good stack I need with plugs. No, I mean, plugs they're fine. I don't like plugs for tiny whoop motors, because tiny whoop motors need all the current that they can get, and the plugs have high resistance. When you get up to larger quads and you're using like I think it's an MR30 connector, that connector has low enough resistance that I don't think it makes a big deal. But as far as plugs go for like receiver, video transmitter, etc., yeah, okay. I mean, I'm going to kind of be annoyed installing the plugs and splicing the wires, but other than that annoyance, it's fine to go. I just swapped the motor bells on my Air 65 because of a slightly bent shaft. Any chance to fix or straighten the shaft, or should I just chuck it? No. Unless you're a machinist, there's no chance of you getting that shaft back to true. There's no chance. I'm sorry. I've seen people say, what I do is I just look at the motor bell and it goes up and down, and when it's up, I tap it on the other side and I got it back. Okay, I mean, like if you're stuck in the middle of the desert and that's your last motor and you desperately just need to get it into shape, it's probably better than nothing. But those motors are spinning at just preposterously high RPMs, and so any little bit of out of balance is going to magnify, and yeah, I would just replace the motor. Especially because it's a freaking tiny whoop motor. They're not that expensive. Yeah, Matter Hatter says, well, you can put it in a drill. You could get it close. Maybe. I mean, hey, what have you got to lose? The motor's already screwed, right? Maybe what have you got to lose? Go for it. Yeah. How do you upgrade Betaflight firmware from 4.1 to 4.5? I mean, just flash it. Don't paste your CLI dump from 4.1 into 4.5. That's a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that. You got to configure it from scratch. Ty Dude asks, how do you submit a question to JB? You just did, brother. That's how you do it. Oh, my goodness. What? We got a question here from Baron FPV. Says, I have the Goggles V2 and sometimes the OSD freezes and stops updating, but the video continues. What does this happen from? Baron FPV... V2 goggles. I'm going to guess that your MSP connection is glitchy. Do you have MSP on soft serial? By chance?
Also, if you're somehow running V2 goggles with a Vista or an Air unit that's on WTF-OS, maybe try re-flashing those.
Yeah, you need to update. I remember Eirik Toft had a problem with his OSD flashing, and it was solved by updating WTF-OS and updating the MSP plugin to the latest version. So... Level 1 Drone says, wait. What happens if I use a CLI dump from a different version? Will it get messed up that much? You don't know. So two things happen. There's two big reasons not to upload like a 4.1 CLI dump to 4.5. The first is that some CLI options were deleted or changed their name. So 4.1 will say set option A equals 123. And Betaflight 4.5 will go, option A, I don't know what that is, because it got renamed to something else. And so that option won't get set correctly. It'll just be bypassed, essentially. The other problem is that in many cases, the Betaflight devs change the defaults, especially within PID tuning and filters. And so you'll paste your 4.1, and the 4.1 CLI dump will contain 4.1 PIDs. But in 4.5, the PID loop changed, and then defaults are different now, and the 4.1 values are not correct anymore for 4.5. And so it just jacks everything up. If you are selective about what you paste in from the CLI dump, because you know enough about the CLI that you can decide what you can and can't paste in, then you could choose. Like, I always paste in my aux modes. I always paste in my ports tab. Although between 4.3 and 4.5, the way that digital, I think between 4.4 and 4.5, but I'm not sure. The way that digital VTXs were configured in the ports tab changed, and so pasting in a 4.3 config to 4.4 or 4.5 wouldn't work correctly. So unless you're going to track all the BS that changed between versions, and very selectively paste in your CLI dump, I wouldn't do it. The other thing, like from 4.4 to 4.5, yeah, you're good to go. There's not enough changes between 4.4 and 4.5 to break it. The understanding is that you're good to go there. But between 4.1 and 4.5, that's a big jump. I don't think I would do it. Okay.
He says in chat, would that explain why I either lose driver or OSD, because that's what's happening with an older Modulus 6 board. It's also possible that you're updating without OSD or gyro included, and it's the one that needs to be included in Betaflight when you flash to 4.5 now. Mm-hmm. But if it's happening when you apply like if you flash, everything's working, and then you apply the dump and it goes away, then it certainly would be the dump.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's get a couple more super chats that have come in. Colin Rain says, I fly O3 on my quads and I'm looking to get a future-proof set of goggles for the ride-alongs. Can the N3 goggles spectate an O3 signal? Yes. Well, the O3 is already bound to my Goggles 3. Yes. I think so. I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. I'm not 100% sure. Sci-Fly gives a follow-up. Everything binds fine, but only if I rebind the goggles and controller does it connect, not automatically when I power on. So you're saying that your G2 and your O3, let's remind me. Sci-Fly says goggle and O3 unit not connect on start, even if bound. What goggle, Sci-Fly? Thank you for another super chat. What goggle is it? Unfortunately, that's important. Let's keep an eye out. V2 goggles. Okay. You've bound the O3 to the V2 goggles. Are you switching out of the O3 mode? With the V2 goggles, when you switch to a different mode, like if you have a Vista that you're using and you switch to the Vista mode, when you do that, you lose all your binds. How about that? You like that? No, no one likes that. It sucks. But that's a bug that they have that isn't fixed. Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know why powering the V2s down would cause you to lose binds, especially on the O3. If you're not on the latest firmware, I would flash it because it sounds like a bug in the firmware. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. Update your firmware. That's not a known bug, I can tell you that. Crease, thank you for $5. Nomad ELRS have FSK modulation instead of FLRC. Is this new modulation supported by existing receivers? It appears to be the only way to get 1,000 hertz. Yes, if you update the firmware. You have to update the firmware, but the 900 megahertz receivers will support that modulation if you put them on the firmware that supports it.
I don't know, is that correct?
What do you think? Do you think that's not correct?
I was just digging through old PRs, and it seems like at least at one point that was not correct. But I don't know if it was changed at some point. Because it's K modes now, right? Instead of F modes and D modes. F modes are FLRC, D modes are...
I mean, that FSK modulation is part of the 1121 chip. So yeah. Any receiver that has an 1121 chip, I guess there were some older 900 megahertz chips, receivers that had a different chip that didn't support, that wasn't the 1121, perhaps. And I don't know if they would support the FSK modes, but I think all the Gemini. So I'll say this: all the Gemini receivers, the dual band Gemini. All the dual band Gemini receivers have an 1121 chip and should support that mode. Many of the 900 megahertz receivers. Let's see, see if I can find a. I don't want the cross receiver though. I want the. BR1 receiver. Does this say which chip it has? Does it have an 1121? No, 1276. Okay, so the 1276 may not support that FSK mode. I don't know. I mean, maybe it does.
Reese, just to be clear, 1000 hertz is already supported on all 2.4 gigahertz devices through F1000. That's a FLRC mode. But if you're talking about FSK 1000, then yeah.
So the 1276 does support FSK mode. Is Captain Bry around? Because I don't know for sure. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Discord. Where are you, Discord? Where can I find Discord? There's Discord. I'm going to ask Captain Bry. He'll know, and he'll probably answer me pretty quickly. Do all 900 megahertz ELRS receivers support the new FSK 1000 hertz modulation, or only 1121 receivers, or some other answer? Okay, we'll see if he gets back to me. I'm as confident as I can be that any 1121 receiver will support that mode, but I could be wrong. Okay. The Nomad doesn't show support for FLRC 1000. That is correct, Crease. Crease, the Nomad doesn't support FLRC 1000. It supports FSK 1000, which those two things aren't equivalent, although they're both at 1000 hertz. FLRC is going to have... Does FLRC have longer range than FSK? It feels like it should because it's like newer. I don't know. 2.4 gigahertz definitely supports 1000 hertz, Crease, but not on the Gemini crossband chips. A 2.4, yes, no, okay, and again, where's that table? Where's the table? Radiomaster, it was in the GX12 paperwork. Where is it? Come on, buddy. Well, flip me. Where is the where there's an image which has a table of supported data rates. Oh, man. There it is. There it is. Compatibility chart. Open image in new tab. There we go. Okay, so Radiomaster Ranger is regular 2.4 gigahertz only using the SX1280 chip. It supports LoRa 50 hertz through 500 hertz and FLRC 250 hertz through 1000 hertz. That's the 2.4 gigahertz SX1280. Okay? Bandit is SX1270, which operates in 900 megahertz and supports only LoRa and these packet rates. And Nomad, which has the 1121 chip, and this is all Gemini receivers, all crossband Gemini receivers. You could build a 900 megahertz only Gemini receiver using an SX1270, and it would support these. You could build a 2.4 gigahertz only Gemini receiver with an SX1280, and it would support these. But most Gemini being made today are crossband. They do both 2.4 and 900. You can switch between them. Those are going to use the 1121 chip, like the Nomad module and the GX12, and they're going to support these packet rates. And you can see that these packet rates in 2.4 gigahertz, we do not get all the way to 1000 because we don't support FLRC. So if you have a 2.4 gigahertz receiver using an FLRC modulation, well, it should bind. I don't know why it wouldn't bind, because when it's binding, it doesn't know what modulation it's on. Actually, don't know how that works.
It does know what modulation it's on, yes.
The receiver? How does it know?
It doesn't know, but it looks the transmitter broadcasts a certain like set. My understanding from Bry was that the transmitter broadcasts a certain like series of packets, and then the receiver picks up that series of packets based on what the modulation rate is. So it only does it if it matches like the set of things.
So if the receiver was previously bound at F1000, then the Nomad will not be able to bind to it unless you reset it. That doesn't make it.
I think
that seems
that's
silly.
based on the setting in the radio. Because isn't there a setting for that now? Like if it decides to look, or if it starts on a different modulation rate. Remember?
It had the init rate. It used to have the init rate, although that's gone in 3.4, 3.5.
Yeah, init rate is like what it's looking for first, right? So it scrolls through all the options. That's the point.
Right. But the receiver, when the receiver goes into bind mode, binding has to have, like, I would think that binding would happen at, LoRa 50 because it's a universal packet rate.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the binding is different than just broadcasting.
It doesn't make sense to me that binding would depend on, it doesn't make sense to me that they would break binding in this way, right? If they know that a Nomad 1121 can't do F1000, then that shouldn't be possible to leave a 2.4 gig 1280 receiver in a state where it is not able to bind to a Nomad module, because they can absolutely bind, they just can't use the FLRC packet rates. So that seems like it would be a silly decision for the devs to make, and I wonder if we're getting the full story.
My previous understanding of the process has always been, and it may be different now with this firmware, but it has always been that the receiver always scrolls through every single possible packet rate over and over again to look for the transmitter signal. It just starts at a different spot depending on where it was last bound. It may take a minute to get through all these sets, because it has to go through every single set of packet rates it can possibly bind to look for the TX broadcasting something it can catch.
Yeah, but that's
as long as they're on the same binding phrase.
But that's not binding. That's initial connection. Binding is a whole separate behavior that we really don't know anything about. And I think I've answered the question. The question is, do only 1121 support the FSK mode? In fact, I'm going to delete this question.
But okay, so you're saying binding where you're doing some kind of binding mode, but I'm saying binding where you put binding phrase into both devices like you normally do with ExpressLRS.
Oh, if you put the bind phrase in them using the Wi-Fi interface, again, the 2.4 gig receiver will start at F1000, but then it'll cycle back through the other ones and will eventually pick it up. 100%.
Unless something has changed, that's how it's always worked in ExpressLRS. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So we can clearly see from this table that the FSK modes are only supported on the 1121 chipset. And that is generally going to be the Gemini crossband receivers, not the dedicated 900 megahertz receivers. The dedicated 900 megahertz receivers will probably have the 1270 chipset and not do the FSK modes. I got to tell you, I think that the Gemini crossband is like going to be the way forward for ExpressLRS, especially in the handset. Like, I don't know if there's much benefit to buying a crossband receiver for a typical person, because a typical person is either going to want extended range, in which case they're going to want a dual 900 receiver, or they're going to want lower latency, in which case they're going to want a dual 2.4 gig receiver. But on the handset, the ability to go back and forth like that is massive. And you're not even giving up that much. Like, you're giving up the FLRC packet rates on the 2.4 gig side, and you're giving up the 25 and the D50 packet rate on the 900 megahertz side. That's not that big a deal,
You're getting... There's no difference between K1000 and F1000 to the normal user, right? Like, they're not going to know the difference.
I think the range is different. I think I can tell you the resistance to interference is absolutely different. FSK modulation is much more susceptible to interference than LoRa, and I don't know about FLRC.
They do FEC. Yeah, they do FEC on it. So I think what they've said is FSK. Bry's in the chat, he can correct me, but I think FSK plus FEC, forward error correcting, is like equivalent to FLRC in this situation, or at least that's what the wiki says. I don't know if that's correct.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'm learning that, right? I'm just now learning that. Maybe Captain Bry can comment on the performance of K1000 versus F1000.
Also, he says binding does happen at 50 hertz, like you said. So if you initiate binding, like you talked about with the binding mode, then it does go to 50, but on both devices. And then, yes, we always cycle through all modes regardless of init rate, like we said.
So you should never get in a situation where like a Nomad module can't bind to a Ranger because the Ranger is like in FLRC mode or something and they won't talk. That should never happen. What's the relative performance of FSK 1000 versus FLRC 1000, Bri? Like the gist of the question is, if I'm a pilot and I buy a Nomad module and I just make that my daily driver, or I buy a GX12 and I make that my daily driver, what am I giving up by losing access to those FLRC modes? Am I really giving anything up? Because we still have DK500, we have full 200.
Well, okay.
We're losing D500,
I think the original
D250.
question. I think the original question came out of this. I have a bunch of 2.4 gigahertz receivers. I want to buy the Nomad. So that means I don't get 1,000 hertz, right? And that the answer is yes.
Correct. If you have a bunch of 2.4 gig receivers and you buy a Nomad, you don't get any of the FLRC packet rates, and you don't get 1,000 hertz. You would need to buy an 1121. You would need to buy a Gemini crossband receiver to get the K1000. You would need to swap your receivers. So that's a really good point. Valid. I think the chat's behind, or Bri is behind. He's not answering yet. Anyway, good talk. Oh, he says, you're losing compatibility with receivers that aren't 1121 if you want to do any of the FLAs, but the DK modes are pretty equivalent to the F modes. So there you go. Crease, you don't need to buy all new receivers. Well, no, Crease. Just buy a Ranger module. Buy a 2.4 gig module. If you already have a bunch of 2.4 gig receivers and that 1,000 hertz is important for racing, which I agree it is, don't buy a bunch of receivers. Buy a module, and then you're fine.
Aren't the racers? I mean, has it changed? Weren't all the racers racing on D modes before?
That's also true. The D modes have much better resistance to interference, and racers were saying that was a significant improvement in LQ when running a D mode. So instead of running F1000, they would be running D500. Nevertheless, you also can't bind in D500 mode with a Nomad.
Right. True.
Who wants a module hanging off the back of their radio? Yeah, that means GX12 plus a module. And if you don't like that, then yes, you need to buy a Gemini crossband receiver for all your racing drones, and then use K1000 or DK500. DK500 would be the one to use. Yeah. So. And Captain Bryce says the question of F1000 versus D500 is up in the air. Anyway, the idea is that since the D mode transmits each packet twice, you get increased noise resistance and better. And if you've got a Gemini, it's doing even better than that because it's transmitting on different hopping patterns. So, anyway, good talk. That's the kind of nerdy shit you guys come for, isn't it? Hell yeah. I learned something. Thank you for a $5 super chat from Chris Salmon. Sorry to interrupt. You're not interrupting. You're leaving a super chat. That's literally the opposite of interrupting. That's like someone watching a busker play music on the subway, and they go and they put a dollar bill in the $20 bill in the hat, and as they walk away, they're like, sorry to interrupt. No, that's why the hat is there. You're good, man. New to FPV, I'm building my first drone and I'm confused. Is a 2806.5 1950 kV okay for the 7-inch? Yeah, that's a pretty good 7-inch motor. I'm going an 8S build. Okay, 1950 kV on 8S is bananas. 1950 kV on 6S is like a high performance freestyle powerful 7-inch. Generally people are building like a 7-inch efficient cruiser, and you would want a kV like 1300 kV, maybe 1600 kV. 1950 kV is a very high kV for a 7-inch on 6S. On 8S, that's bananas. Now I think it's going to fly like a bat out of hell. But if you're trying to build a 7-inch like slow mountain cruiser with efficient long flight times, you need lower kV motors, like a lot lower kV motors. You need like maximum 1500 kV, better something like 1300 kV. Also, good point, C. Joe. 7-inch for your first quad? 8S 7-inch, 1950 kV for your first quad. That's like giving a 16-year-old an 800 horsepower supercharged Mustang and saying, have fun, Timmy. Timmy's going to put it in a frickin' wall. So that's an interesting choice. And I'm not telling you shouldn't make it, but I am saying it's a bold choice, and maybe you don't realize just how bold it really is. Oxtail Gravy says, I have a TBS Tango Crossfire. Should I switch to the TBS Mambo? No. Why would you do that? Who uses Tracer anymore? I'm a firm believer that there's no point in buying a radio that has a different internal module that you'll never use. Unless you have a whole bunch of tracer quads, don't buy the Mambo. The Mambo is a fine radio, but it's got an internal tracer module, and I don't know if people are really running tracer anymore. I think those people have moved over to Ghost or ExpressLRS. I would say no. Okay. Those are super chats. Do we really only have 9 queued Blunty questions? Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can the O3 air unit be waterproofed by taking it apart and applying coating? No, don't do that. DJI air units are already as waterproof as they need to be. DJI takes care of this. There have been Cadx Vistas that have been underwater in a freshwater, mind you, a freshwater lake all night, and they pull them out and they dry them off and they just work fine for years. DJI water, if you open up, you'll see there's already conformal coating on the board. Do not do it. You're just going to mess it up. It's already fine. Leave it alone. DJI air units are fine. You are not going to make them better by trying to waterproof them. And I definitely know at least one person who opened up his O3, put Conformal on it, and when you put it back together, it didn't work because he Conformal coated one of the connectors between the boards, I don't know exactly what happened, but he Conformal coated something that made it not work. Don't do it. You don't need to. It's fine. Dylan Bianco. I built a 5-inch 4S 1650 kV drone. Flies good, but when it comes to tuning, should I take the time to learn PID tuning, or would it be okay to go for a preset? 4S 1650 5-inch? I'm amazed that even gets off the air. Do you mean 2650? 1650 is low kV for 6S, never mind 4S. I don't know what kind of PID tuning. I don't think a preset PID tune is going to help you, because those presets are all based on a nominal RPM range. It's in kind of a normal range. Like, man, I don't know. And I think your RPM is so low, your power is so low, I'm not really sure what's going on. 1650 kV 4S 5-inch, those are the wrong motors for that build. I'm sorry. They're just not powerful, and they don't have enough RPM. The kV is way too low. Those would be okay motors for an 8S build. I don't suggest you go get 8S batteries. I don't think your electronics can probably handle it, but yeah. What the frick, Blunty? This makes no sense, Blunty. Am I crazy? This motor is a 2203.5. Okay. 2203.5 is a fantastic, like 4-inch to 3.5-inch motor. Maybe on a Cinewhoop under some circumstances. But that's a good size motor for like a 4-inch or a 3-inch, maybe 3.5-inch, depending on the usage. I would say 4-inch. It's just about perfect. Okay, what KV on 4S with a 4-inch prop? 3,000-ish KV, if my memory is correct. It's been a while. Okay. Oh, 4 to 6S LiPo, 1650 kV. What is this motor for? What are you going to use a 2203 1650 kV? Is it going to be a ultra light? Okay. Ultra lightweight 5-inch with a 6S battery. That's about it. I don't know. Ultra lightweight 5-inch with a 6S battery. But a 5-inch with a 4S battery, it's not going to make a lot of power. It'll fly, but it's not going to make a lot of power. I'm not sure what they're freaking... I don't know how... I think it's irresponsible to say that this motor is for 3-inch. There's no way this motor is high enough kV to be used on a 3-inch prop, even with a 6S battery. Although, as we discussed previously, I don't think there's much point in going 6S on 3-inch props. This motor's it's half the kV that it should be, and the motor kind of just doesn't make any sense. All right. Ciotti says giant Cinewhoop, 5-blade, 3.5-inch prop. Maybe so. Pete Stueve says, I'm brand new with FPV, and I see you can change Expo. I think in my Radiomaster Boxer as well as Betaflight. Which is preferred if I want to play around with settings? Any set tiny whoop you change for a newbie? Don't change Expo in your Boxer. If you want to play with rates, do it in the flight controller, not in the Boxer. The flight controller is, you generally want your hand controller set to be completely linear and have the normal endpoints, and then you just leave it alone, and everything else you do in the flight controller. That's the recommendation. Ghost Tech Review says, after being on the shelf for about 3 weeks, my TX16S won't boot. No screen, no sound, just power button light is on. Have to unplug bat to turn off the power light. Is it bricked? Well, what happened to it? I mean, check that the battery's power is charged up. Try removing the SD card. Maybe the SD card is jacked up. That's a thought. Remove the, open the radio up and remove the coin cell. Maybe that's an issue. That can happen. I would bet on the SD card. It's not a strong bet, but it would be my bet if I was forced to bet. Kent J asks, with the O4 air unit coming out, do you think we're getting to the point where there is no need to mount a GoPro to your quad? Yeah, we're already there. The O3 has done that for a lot of people. The O4 is potentially even better. But the O3 has already got us there. Many people are not running a GoPro anymore, unless you're like a professional. Will an ESC be okay to use if a cap or two is shot? FETs are fine. Yeah, usually it's fine. Usually they have more capacitance than they need. I would make sure you had a good capacitor, a good electrolytic capacitor on it, and cross my fingers. And it's going to be slightly more likely to fry, but you probably keep using it. Should I get the V2 goggle or skip to the G2? I would not buy the V2 goggle today unless I got a screaming deal on it, like $200. Now we're getting to the point, like, okay, you could still buy RunCam Link and Cadx Vista VTX and camera, and who knows how much longer you'll be able to. That whole system has lasted way longer than I would have guessed. Nevertheless, eventually they're going to stop making them, and at this point they're so far behind, like, it kind of got to wonder, is this where I want to be? Now, the V2 is compatible with the O3 air unit, but with the O4 out, how long will DJI make the O3? Don't know. We said that about the Vista when the O3 came out, and DJI kept the Vista generation going, and still has. Will they do that with the O3? Who knows? I mean, I still think that no is the best answer. And that the Vista is the exception, not the rule. So I think if you buy the V2, you're going to be stuck with the Cadx Vista and RunCam Link, and DJI may continue throwing that bone to Cadx and RunCam in perpetuity, but eventually DJI will pull the rug on that, and the V2 will be essentially, well, it'll be dependent on the O3, which may it's just too much uncertainty. Too much uncertainty. That's what I'm saying. Too much uncertainty. I'd buy a set of V2s for $200. I wouldn't pay $350 for one. I would get the Integra, the G2, something like that. All the crossband receivers look big. Valid. They got more hardware on them. They look big. Have any of your goats ever fainted? I don't have fainting goats. They don't faint. Mine don't do that. Have I reviewed the GX12? I have the video recorded. I have not published it yet. Any pins on the SpeedyBee AIO? No strong opinions. Not really. I'd give it a try just based on the name. Can I fly my DJI Air Unit Vista drones with the DJI RC controller? Yes. The DJI one. So, they just have to be on an older firmware. Go ahead, Blunty.
So yeah, the problem is there's some confusion. I was helping him in chat. So he's talking about the RC and the RC2 with the screen on it that DJI calls the DJI RC and the DJI RC2, and you cannot control any of our air units with those. The only ones you can use are the FPV controllers, which we call the RC1, the RC2, and the RC3. But those are actually the DJI controllers. So the old big black one and the two smaller gray and white ones.
Yeah. Gotcha. Are there any other radios that come with a Crossfire module built in other than the Tango 2? The Jumper T20 has a mod that can take an internal Crossfire module. You basically take the board out of the Crossfire micro and you mod it into the T20. It's an official Jumper mod. It's to the radio, it's an external module, but functionally it's inside the case. Other than that, the Tango 2 is the only one. What ExpressLRS module do you recommend for long range? Radiomaster Nomad. Period. I built an FPV Proto 5 gauntlet with SpeedyBee F405 stack, 1750 kV, 2207 T-Motor Pacer Motors O3, Radiomaster receiver on 6S. Can you rate this build 1 to 10? Points off for having an F4 stack instead of an F7. The performance doesn't matter, but still, it's less than the highest number, bestest, most expensive thing you can buy. So I'm going to knock your point off there because you cheaped out. 1750 kV, 2207. I would rather have 1950 kV. You can always like knock that down in the PID tuning tab to give you lower RPM, but you could never knock it up. So points off for that. T-Motor Pacer, okay motors. You might think I would give you points off for not getting a G-Wiz motor. The Pacer is a budget motor, but no. I think it's generally not worth wasting money on expensive motors, and budget motors are the way to go. So, subverting your expectations there. O3, fine. That's what you use. O3 is fine. I'm not going to give you props or plus or minus for the video system. Now, if you bought an analog video transmitter and you bought like a crappy one, I'd give you points off. But I'm not going to give you points off for having DJI versus HDZero versus Walksnail because that's a personal decision everybody makes for themselves. And if you have DJI, the O3 is a fine choice. So no points off there. Radiomaster receiver. You didn't say which Radiomaster receiver it was. We'll assume you selected a good one. Can you rate the build 1 to 10? I give this build a Proto 5 gauntlet frame. Hold on. Is that the aluminum frame? I didn't even look. Yeah, that's the aluminum bottom frame. Somebody said that the guy from Proto 5 was like in my chat offering to send me a frame when we talked about this frame previously. And like, I want to tell that guy if he's out there, I wasn't being rude to you. The chat goes by so fast. I just didn't know you should email me if you want to send me a frame. I mean, I don't necessarily, I don't know. Like, that's not how to get in touch with me. Proto 5 frame, I'm going to give you plus points for being like original, thinking outside the box and doing something innovative for the Proto 5 frame. I don't know if this is a good frame. It's a cool frame, I'll say that. So I give this build an 8 out of 10. Is that right? Is that the right scale? Points off. I think you should get more than 1 point off, though, for the things you got points off for. I feel like 1 point off isn't quite right. So 2 points off for the F405 stack, 2 points off because you bought the wrong motor KV, plus 1 point for the frame. That's going to be minus 3 points. It's going to be a 7 out of 10. How would you get like a 1 out of 10? Yeah. I don't know. A 7 out of 10. You're welcome. Is there any reason not to use ExpressLRS for RC helicopters? I don't know. I don't use RC helicopters. I guess not. I mean, probably you need either a PWM or an S-bus out, and it can do that. But RC helicopters are fiddly, and I hesitate to give strong recommendations because there are quirks sometimes that that you don't necessarily know are going to be there. So I crashed my 5-inch after fixing and it flips on takeoff. 2 flight controllers have the same problem? I'm stumped.
They're not setting it up properly. Sorry.
After fixing it. Oh, after fixing it, it flips on takeoff. Yeah, you've screwed up one of the 4 things. There are 4 things that cause an Insta-flip on takeoff. Motor position is wrong. Motor direction is wrong. Prop is on incorrectly. Motor spinning wrong direction. Those are like always the 4 things that cause it. And then people say, I checked them. That's not it. And I say, you overlooked something. You overlooked something. And they say, no, I didn't. I promise you. And we go back and forth. And then they come back to me and they go, oh yeah, I had a motor spinning the wrong direction. Sorry. Or something. It's always one of those 4 things. It just always, like, okay, 1% of the time it's something else, but 99.9% of the time. Flight controller board orientation. Wow, how did I overlook that? Yes, board orientation. Motor direction, motor position, board orientation, props on wrong. Those are the 4 things. How did I list 4 things without mentioning board orientation? I said motor direction twice. Sorry, guys. Whew. When the dementia sets in, the live stream will know first. All right. Okay. I bought a pigtail with a capacitor at the XT60. Would this be a reason for 3 of the motors to run rough? No. Nope. I don't think so. Number 1 reason for rough motors would be that your RC Link preset is set incorrectly. Go into the Betaflight's presets tab and load the correct RC Link preset for the packet rate that you're using. Yeah. Blunty, I don't see Nico's question. Did I overlook it? I got it right here, though. I'll grab it. Nico FPV, I have HDZero goggles. I want to use analog. My question is, should I get analog goggles or just get a module for the HDZero goggles? If you have the money, get separate analog goggles. However, I said on my stream yesterday, maybe that's why Blunty didn't cue this. We covered this yesterday. I like the HDZero goggles because they have a fantastic DVR. The DVR stays in sync with other cameras. It doesn't drop frames and go out of sync, and it records audio, which for a content creator is super, super valuable. If that wasn't the case, then I would have dedicated analog goggles that I would use instead of the HDZero because they're so clunky. They're very good analog goggles, but they're so clunky with the module hanging off the side. Also, some people have trouble with the HDZero analog functionality, things like rolling screen or black screen with green dots. I don't personally experience that, but it may be because I have the V1 hardware, not the V2 hardware. I'm not sure about that. What's the best analog goggle? Long story short, SkyZone Skyo 4X. And analog module, well, if I bought the SkyZones, I would just use their internal module. It's fine. With a HDZero, I use the TBS Fusion. Okay. Aerial Insight asks, I bought a pigtail with a capacitor on the XT, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I already answered this. Thank you for a $10 super chat, Aerial Insight. Thank you. Are there any frame design, oops, wrong one. Are there any frame designs out there that can be made at home with a CNC router? Yes. The TBS Source 1 is an open source carbon fiber frame. The DXF files are available publicly, and you can cut it at home if you have a CNC router. It's switched on my Radiomaster Boxer without the antenna and noticed after 10 minutes Don't see any drop in RSSI or LQ. Should I replace the radio? No. If you do the table test, where you place a receiver, place a drone like 1 meter away, you set your output power to the lowest, and you turn the radio on and you look at the RSSI dBm, search ELRS table test or ELRS before you fly. Those are the two searches I use to find the page. They give the guidelines for the values you should see. But if your RSSI is normal after that, you're fine. Don't worry about it. All right. Hang on. Oof. Oh. All right. Coming up to the end of the stream. Oh, yeah, I have to plug the HDMI in too. That's my bad. Is that gonna be? Oh, that's a little annoying. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna fix these hands. I have to focus. I'm gonna get this thing working. I guess I should have the little finger cots on if I'm going to touch the inside of the watch. That's annoying. Oh, yeah, I have to put the finger cots on. Oh, man. Hold on. 2, 3. I don't know what the difference is between the black finger cots and the yellow ones. Presumably there's a difference. Okay, so then I have to take the shaft and the crown out. Oh, I have to, oh, yeah, oof. Wait, it should really be on my right hand, shouldn't it? Hold on. Because the tool is going to be in my left hand. Okay. Okay. All right. And then do you pull it out or do you push it in? Hold on. No, there it is. Oh God, I can barely see. I can barely see what I'm doing, especially on camera. Yep, there we go. Okay, got that. Great, that went smoothly. Now I have to get this out. How am I going to do that? I've never taken it out before. Do we just lift up here? Like, oh yeah, that seems like that's going to work. Do I just kind of tip it out? Huh. I've never had to take this part out before. I only put it in. Here we go. Okay. Got it. Okay. And, okay, I'm going to have to clean that before I put it back in, because now you can see we got a little, I don't know if you can see, we got a little smudge on it. It's really important to keep the inside clean. Okay, now, hang on. Oh, this is the frustrating part. Hold on.
When I've watched watchmakers do this on YouTube, they have some tool to pop the hands off.
I don't need to pop the hands off, though. I just need to bend it down. This would be easier to do if I put the crown back in. So actually, I do need to put the crown back in because I have to get the hands all lined up so I can level them. You watch watchmakers plenty? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, there we go. So now I can line up the hands. I need to line up all three hands. And shoot, I need to line up the second hand too. Okay, well, I might be able to do it from here because what's happened is that the minute hand is sticking up. And I need to... Oh, don't do that. Can we focus? I guess that's as focused as we're going to get. Oh man, how am I going to get that to go down? I don't want to pop the second hand off to use the tool because getting the second hand on is really difficult.
There's no way to manually advance the second hand.
No, but I could just let it run around. But the problem is if the second hand is on top of the minute hand, then you just, I think I might have done it. They show, push that back in and let it run around. They show using like a post-it note under the hand to lift it up if it's not level. There's a tool that goes down onto the hand and you can kind of pivot it to tilt the hand to level it, which I did, I thought. But apparently not, or it got jacked up when I was inserting it somehow. Let's let the second hand run around and see if I fixed it. Come on, baby. Oh, that's fine. So then,
is it possible it's hitting the bezel or the glass, whatever?
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I think they look pretty good though. No. Do you see how close the second hand is to the minute hand? Maybe the second hand isn't level. Oh, I think the second hand isn't level. Okay. Maybe the second hand got whacked. Hold on. So let's take this little tool here. Okay, this is easy to break. I have to be real careful here. Hold on. Let me get my head in the shot slightly. Okay, there we go. Okay. Let's see if I can do this while letting you see it on camera. So we're just going to kind of try to level the second hand there. That's more level, but still not quite level. That looks pretty close. Okay, so now let's see if the minute hand interferes. Let's see how it interacts with the second hand. Oh no. Oh. No. It's the minute hand is angled up. That's the problem. That's what we have to fix. And I don't want to pop the second hand off to do that. So I'm just going to try pushing it down. I don't think I can do this on camera though. Hold on. I gotta just... And then the minute hand can't interfere with the hour hand, of course. Okay. All right, they're clear of each other. I'll show you guys. It looks like they're pretty clear. I'll put them right on top of each other. And it's not perfectly parallel, but they are clear. So then we will remove the stem and crown, and geez, I'm gonna hope that the inside didn't get a smudge on it. I'm gonna hope that it didn't. I just cross my fingers. And where does the goes there? And the stem goes, come on, you bugger. Man, I am so, like, watch, this is so, it's annoying and frustrating, but in a good way. But man, the fiddliness of working on watches is beyond, it's insane.
Are you planning to wear this watch, or are you going to take apart the movement and try to learn how to put movements together?
God, no, I won't take the movement apart, no. I would probably just buy a movement and mess with it, like I said. There we go, all the way in. No, it's fucked up. Oh no, did I fuck it up? Nope, I didn't fuck it up. Yay. Okay. Yeah, what do you think, Bunty? You think it'd be a good? What do you think my chances are of getting the movement back together? I mean, it looks pretty fiddly in there.
I think it depends on your willingness to do it. I know you can do it.
Yeah.
But it looks real fiddly. Like if you're fiddling with the hands, oh boy.
No, getting this. So I had no trouble with the hands, except the second hand is the shaft that the second hand goes onto is so small. Even with a 3x loop, you can barely see it. It's crazy. Okay, let's see here. That moves all correctly. And does the second hand sweep past the... Here, I'm going to cheat. Okay, there we go. Let the second hand sweep past the minute hand. I fixed it! Yay, I fixed it! Yay me! That's it. Now the only problem is if you look at the bezel. So here's one click. Oops. Here's the other click. Oops. None of the clicks actually line up with the hours because I put this freaking thing on wrong. And I have to debate whether to just leave it like this in between clicks or whether to try to get this thing off and see if it'll go back on again without like ruining the whole freaking thing. I don't know. Yay! It has an O-ring. I put the O-ring on. I 100% put the O-ring on, Dextra. 100% put the O-ring on, buddy. Whew. I put it on. You guys. How well did I press it in? I don't know. Did I not press it in? So, hang on. Oh, no. Now I'm curious. Now I'm concerned. People seem to know what they're talking about better than I do. It's not hard to say.
It's the chat, so that's...
Are you saying
50-50 on that one?
I did the O-ring by putting the O-ring around. I didn't seat the O-ring into the channel because I assumed that when I tightened down the back that would happen sort of on its own. Is that incorrect? It's okay to touch this part of the watch, right? That's going to touch my wrist. That's no big deal. So... am I supposed to put the O-ring in the channel and then screw the back on? Because what I did is I put the O-ring on the back, you know, And then I assumed that when I tightened that down, it would seep into the channel.
The first way.
Oh, fuck. Well, that's gosh damn it.
Well, 2 people said yes, so again, 50-50, but...
Because I can't write... Like, I don't have any, like, grease to help... You know, Blunty, when you're seating O-rings, you'll put a little grease in the channel, and it'll hold the O-ring? I don't have any, like, grease or anything to seat this in the channel. It's pretty hard to get it to sit in the channel. There we go. Okay, I got it. Now, will I screw it up when I put this on? Oh, I think not. There we go. Spit on it. Good idea. The hardest way is the right way. That's there's a lot of wisdom there. Okay, there we go. Yeah. The O-ring is on correctly now. Thank you, guys. I don't think you're supposed to spit on it because, like, they're like, do not touch the movement with your dirty, oily, corroded fingers. Like, so I got a strong warning about what you are and aren't supposed to do. Yeah, so this is not a sponsored video because I haven't paid. This was a gift from a friend, and I have no idea like what the sort of cash value. I don't even know how much this cost. So like people could look. You should do your research. It was kind of fun to assemble. It was kind of a pain in the ass. You don't build the movement. So if you're like, I want to build a whole watch from a pile of gears and springs, that's not this. I don't know if that even exists. But it is a fun memento. There are definitely ways you can screw it up, so it's a little bit of stress. And you know, at the end of the day, you have a nice little memento of something you did. A little watch that you put together, and that's kind of cool. So that is DIY Watch Club if you're excited about this kind of thing.
I think most of those come with like a normal Seiko movement. There's like a standard new person Seiko movement. I don't know what you call it, but I watched enough watches to do that. But I know there's like a fairly common like cloned Seiko movement that a lot of people use.
Yeah, it's not, I think that's what I have. It's not like a high-end movement. It does have the GMT function. It's a very, very basic, you know, sort of entry grade. And so like in terms of the thing I wonder about is like, how much would this watch be if you bought just a watch versus if you bought the kit? Surely they're marking up the kit some, right? So the watch that you get will not probably be as good a watch as if you just spent that money on a watch, but you'll have the experience of building it. It's kind of fun and you learn a little bit. I think if you were going to get into watch modding, like you were going to take a watch apart, you were going to put a custom face on it, custom bezel and stuff, maybe even custom hands. Like that's the kind of thing you could do with a more expensive watch or another watch, and this would sort of get you in the door there. I don't know. Anyway, I thought I'd mention it because it's kind of a cool thing I did, and other people might be interested in it. And also, it let me waste 15 minutes of live stream time fixing it, and now I can wear it. So that's cool. That's going to do it for the stream. Blunty, any more super chats come in? I don't think so.
We got them all.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for the stream. We will see you next Sunday, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, next Sunday. And if you have questions about New Jersey drones, watch out for the Clips channel and also check the yesterday's stream. The first thing we talked about was New Jersey drones for a long while. So.
Yeah, check out yesterday's stream. It's on the live stream and the live stream Clips channel, Joshua Bardwell live stream Clips, where it'll be up pretty soon. That's going to do it. Good night, everybody.